Introduction. The moment I met my limits. There are moments in life when, no matter how hard you try, nothing changes. Have you ever been there? When you give your all, you pray, you plan, you sacrifice, but reality remains unmoved, untouched, indifferent to your efforts. I remember that moment like a scar that never fully fades. Years ago, my father suffered a sudden stroke. I raced against time, hoping I could do something. Find a better doctor. Try a new treatment. Plead with fate for just one more day. But, despite everything, he passed away. In the stillness that followed, I was left with a question that haunted me. How do you keep going when you cannot change what has already happened? That moment wasn't just grief. It was a turning point, the first time I truly understood the meaning behind a phrase. I'd heard before, we are not disturbed by things but by our perception of them. The words of Epictetus, a man born a slave who became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers. It was then that I turned to Stoicism, not as an academic subject but as a lifeline, not for theories, but for survival. We live in a world that constantly changes, and the more change we face, the easier it is to feel powerless. Every day brings frustration, unfairness, and loss, from the minor annoyance of a missed train to the deep sorrow of losing someone we love, or even losing ourselves. And in the middle of all that, a quiet question rises. Is it possible to find peace, not by resisting life, but by learning to accept it? Stoic philosophy does not promise control over the world. It doesn't teach us to manipulate fate or force outcomes. Instead, it offers something far more powerful: the art of accepting reality and mastering ourselves. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, once wrote in his Meditations, "If something is beyond your control, let it go. It's not your concern." A simple idea, and yet, it holds the power to change the way we live. This video is an invitation to walk together through the landscapes of ancient wisdom, personal struggle, and timeless truth. We'll explore what it means to accept what cannot be changed, not as weakness, but as strength, not as surrender, but as self-liberation. We'll listen to the voices of the Stoics. We'll hear the echoes of history, and most importantly, we'll listen to our own lives. Because here's the truth. Even when you cannot change the world, you can always change the way you stand within it. The truth about control, knowing what you can and can't change. Imagine waking up tomorrow with the certainty that you only need to care about the things you truly control. No more wasting energy trying to bend the world to your will. No more sleepless nights over things that refuse to move, no matter how hard you push. Just clarity, a quiet understanding of where your responsibility begins and where it ends. This is where Stoicism begins. At the very heart of Stoic thought lies a razor-sharp distinction. Epictetus said it best: "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." At first glance, this seems too simple to matter. But don't be fooled. This single sentence has the power to reshape the way you see everything. So what is under your control? Your thoughts, your actions, your judgments, your choices, and what isn't? Almost everything else. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control other people's opinions. You cannot control time, illness, loss, or death. You cannot even control whether your efforts lead to success. You can only control the effort itself. This idea may seem restrictive, but in truth, it is liberating. Let me tell you something I once struggled with. There was a time I was working on a project I truly believed in, something I poured months of energy into. I planned everything, gave it all my attention, and believed it would succeed. But when the time came, unexpected obstacles appeared. A financial backer pulled out. A partner backed away. The whole thing crumbled. And in that moment, I fell into the same trap we all fall into. Self-blame, anger, frustration. But looking back now, with Stoicism as my guide, I realized something vital. I had done my part. I had acted with effort, with integrity, and with intention. But the outcome, that was never mine to command. Marcus Aurelius, facing wars and plagues during his reign, never demanded that the world cooperate with his plans. Instead, he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What we often forget is this: the more we try to control what cannot be controlled, the more we suffer, and the more we focus on what is within our power, the more we grow in courage, in calm, and in clarity. There's a quiet strength in saying, "This is not mine to change." It doesn't mean giving up, it means letting go of illusions. You still take action. You still care deeply, but you stop pretending that the world owes you results. You show up fully, without clinging. In modern life, this principle applies everywhere. Can't make someone love you, but you can love without expectation. You can't prevent failure, but you can rise again with dignity. You can't stop time, but you can live today with intention. It's not indifference, it's wisdom. The Stoics weren't cold. They felt pain, fear, disappointment, but they trained themselves to return, again and again, to what they could shape their character. They understood the only true control is self-control. So ask yourself now, what in your life are you trying to control that doesn't belong to you? What weight are you carrying that isn't yours to bear? The truth is, your energy is sacred. Spend it where it matters. The emotional storm: why we resist acceptance and how it hurts you so far. We've begun to see what the Stoics taught us, that our peace depends on understanding what we can and cannot control. But understanding is one thing, living it, that's another. Because even when we know something is out of our hands, we still resist, we still fight, we still tighten our grip, as if holding on a little longer might magically change the outcome. But ask yourself, has that ever worked? Why do we do this? The answer lies deep in the emotional core of our being, and our need for certainty, our fear of loss, and the illusion that control equals safety. Let me take you back to a moment I've never really shared. There was a time when someone I loved deeply chose to walk away. No argument, no explanation, just distance. And even though I knew I couldn't force love, I kept trying to win it back. I replayed every conversation, reread every message, created imaginary scenarios where things would change. I was clinging, not to the person, but to the hope that I could rewrite the story. And yet, the more I resisted, the more I suffered. Sleep slipped away. My health declined. My mind became a battlefield of what-ifs and if. That is the emotional storm we all face when confronted with the unchangeable, you see. The human heart doesn't surrender easily. We believe that if we just try harder, care more, or worry enough, somehow we can undo what's already done. But the Stoics warned us, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Epictetus: it's not the loss itself that breaks us. It's our refusal to accept that it happened. It's not the failure that destroys us. It's our insistence that it shouldn't have happened. This resistance creates tension in the mind. It's like trying to hold back a tidal wave with bare hands. And here's the cost. The more you fight reality, the more reality fights you back. You exhaust your spirit. You turn sorrow into suffering. You confuse pain, which is natural, with punishment, which is self-inflicted. Marcus Aurelius, ruling an empire amid war, famine, and betrayal, wrote this in his journal, not for history, not for others, but for himself. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. What a radical shift! To not just tolerate the unexpected, but to welcome it as a necessary part of the whole. This doesn't mean we feel nothing. Stoicism is not numbness. It means we feel everything, but without being enslaved by it. When someone dies, we grieve, but we don't resist the truth of their absence. When plans collapse, we feel the sting, but we don't demand the past be different. When love ends, we mourn, but we don't lose ourselves trying to revive what's already gone. To live with acceptance is not weakness, it's emotional courage. It means saying, this hurts, I wish it were different, but I will not let it destroy me. It means recognizing that acceptance is not the end of feeling, it's the beginning of healing. Let's be clear, we resist because we care, because we love, because we dream. But love without wisdom can become attachment, and dreams without surrender can become cages. What Stoicism teaches us is balance: to care deeply, but not cling. To strive nobly, but let go when it's time. To feel loss fully, but not lose ourselves in it. You can stand in the middle of a storm, heart pounding, tears falling, and still choose acceptance. Not because the storm isn't real, but because you are more real than the storm, and when the winds pass, when the silence returns, you will remain steady, grounded, whole. The wisdom of ancient Stoics. How Marcus, Epictetus, and Seneca embraced the unchangeable. If we want to truly understand what it means to accept the unchangeable, we must look back not just into our own lives, but into the lives of those who carried this wisdom long before us, and among them, three voices rise again and again: Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. They did not write from ivory towers or peaceful gardens. They lived in the chaos, and still they found clarity. They stood face to face with suffering, and still they chose reason over despair. They were men of the world, but governed by an inner world, that could not be shaken. Let's begin with Epictetus, the former slave. Born into bondage, Epictetus had no control over his body, his time, or even his freedom. His master could beat him, starve him, silence him, and yet Epictetus discovered a freedom deeper than any chain could reach. He once said, "I must die, must I then die groaning too?" What a question! He knew death was inevitable, but how? He met it. That was his choice. This is the core of his teaching. We may not command our circumstances, but we can always command our response, even when a fellow slave broke his leg. And Epictetus calmly warned that it would happen if the pressure continued. He didn't scream, he didn't curse, he simply said, "I told you that would happen," not with bitterness, but with acceptance, not because it didn't hurt, but because he had already trained his mind to face the inevitable. Now contrast that with Seneca, the wealthy Roman statesman. Seneca had everything: power, fame, riches, and yet he also lived under constant threat. Serving under Emperor Nero, one of the most volatile rulers in Roman history, Seneca spent years navigating court intrigue, betrayal, and suspicion. He knew that at any moment his fortune could become a death sentence. That eventually did. Accused of conspiracy, Seneca was ordered to take his own life. Do you know what he did? He calmly gathered his friends. He opened his veins, and as the blood left his body, he dictated philosophical reflections, urging his loved ones not to grieve too deeply. Who could do that, except someone who had trained himself to accept death long before it arrived? Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing, and drags the unwilling." In other words, we either go with the flow of life or we are pulled by it, screaming. Then there is Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most paradoxical figure of all, an emperor, a philosopher, a soldier, a father. He ruled the Roman Empire during one of its most turbulent periods, marked by plague, war, betrayal, and personal loss. And yet, in the midst of commanding armies and managing crises, he wrote privately in his journal, not as a ruler but as a student of life. Those writings became meditations, one of the greatest philosophical works in history. Marcus did not pretend to have control over the empire's future. He knew it could all collapse, but he returned, day after day, to a single practice, reminding himself what was his to shape, and what was not. He wrote, "You may break your heart, but men will still go on as before." He did not seek to escape pain, he faced it. He did not deny hardship, he walked through it with composure. What these three men teach us across wealth and poverty, freedom and captivity, power and powerlessness, is that inner peace. It is not dependent on outer stability, it is forged from within. They didn't numb themselves to reality. They saw it more clearly than anyone else, and still chose not to be destroyed by it. Epictetus had no rights, but he was not bitter. Seneca had every comfort, and still prepared for loss. Marcus had all the power in the world, and still reminded himself that he was just a man, breathing borrowed air. This is why Stoicism is not just a philosophy, it is a practice, a discipline, a path, because in the end, no one escapes suffering, no one avoids change, no one lives without moments of helplessness, but some learn to meet those moments differently, and that difference is everything. Training the mind. How to practice daily acceptance in a restless world. Wisdom is not inherited, it's cultivated. Just like a muscle, the mind must be trained, tested and strengthened through repetition. And when it comes to acceptance, this quiet, invisible art training becomes essential. Why? Because we do not live in ancient Rome. We live in a world that bombards us notifications, headlines, arguments, noise. A world that urges us to react instantly, to resist anything unpleasant, to control everything and everyone. It's easy to know the Stoic path, but how do you walk it in the middle of modern chaos? Let's begin with the truth most people overlook. Acceptance is not a one-time decision. It is a daily discipline. You don't wake up one morning, declare I accept everything, and walk off into a calm, enlightened life. No. You must remind yourself constantly of what belongs to you and what does not. And that reminder begins with awareness. In the morning, before the day begins, the Stoics prepared their minds. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Today you will meet people who are rude, deceitful, arrogant, jealous, but none of it can harm you unless you allow it." He didn't wait to be surprised. He expected adversity, and in doing so, he disarmed its power. This is where your training begins, in anticipation. Before you open your phone, before you read the news, before the demands come rushing in, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what is likely to disturb me today? What is beyond my control? How can I respond with clarity instead of reaction? This simple ritual, just 5 minutes, can reset your entire mindset, but that's only the beginning. Throughout the day, challenges will arise: traffic, conflict, disappointment, delay. These are your practice grounds. When someone criticizes you unfairly, your instinct might be to defend, to fight back. But pause and ask, is this worth my peace? Is this within my control? 9 times out of 10, the answer will be no. And here's the key. When you identify something as not yours to control, you release it, not out of weakness, but because your energy is precious. There's a story about Epictetus. One day a man mocked his limp, a result of the injury inflicted by his master years before. Instead of reacting, Epictetus simply smiled and said, "Would you mock a tree for its shape?" He had trained his mind not to crave approval, and so no insult could touch him. But what about pain? What about loss, illness, heartbreak? These cannot be avoided. But even here, the Stoic trains. Seneca practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. He imagined loss, illness, death, not to become pessimistic, but to prepare the soul. He said, "He who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." Try this. At the end of the day, reflect. What did I resist today? What emotion pulled me from peace? Did I react or respond? This is how you sharpen your awareness. This is how you grow. And over time, you will find something strange happening. You stop trying to change people. You stop replaying regrets. You stop fearing outcomes. And in their place, something steady begins to rise: a quiet mind, a grounded presence, an unshakable self. Acceptance doesn't mean you give up on progress. It means you only fight the battles worth fighting. It means you release the need to control the uncontrollable and return home to the only place you've ever truly had power, your own soul. This is the practice. Daily, patiently, with compassion for yourself when you forget, and with courage to begin again each time. Because the world will not stop spinning, but your mind, your inner world, can become still. In part 6, we'll explore the paradox of strength through surrender and letting go without giving up, the Stoic balance between action and acceptance. We'll see how acceptance doesn't mean weakness. It means knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Letting go without giving up. The Stoic balance between action and acceptance. There's a common misunderstanding when people hear the word acceptance. They think of surrender, of passivity, of letting life roll over you like a wave while you simply lie back and let it all happen. But that's not what the Stoics meant. True Stoic acceptance is not the act of giving up, it's the art of letting go of what you cannot control, so that you can give your full strength to what you can. This is one of the most powerful and misunderstood paradoxes in Stoic philosophy. To be strong, you must first learn to surrender, but only to the right things. Let's begin with a simple but uncomfortable truth. Most of our suffering doesn't come from the events themselves, it comes from the tension between our efforts and our expectations. We try hard, we plan carefully, we care deeply, and then when reality doesn't reflect our hopes, we fall into despair, resentment, or exhaustion. But what if you could release yourself from the burden of the outcome without releasing your effort? Imagine this scene. A farmer wakes before dawn. He tills the soil, plants the seeds, waters them faithfully, and watches over them with care. But when the rains don't come, does he blame himself? Does he scream at the sky? Does he curse the earth? No, he accepts what is beyond him and returns again tomorrow to tend what is still his. That is Stoic action, engaged, disciplined, purposeful, but unattached to results. This mindset allows you to take bold, meaningful action without being shattered by what lies beyond your reach. Take Marcus Aurelius. He didn't hide in the palace. He led armies into war, negotiated peace, reformed law. But through it all, he reminded to himself, "You have embarked. You have set sail. Now let the wind blow as it will." He knew he could steer the ship, but never command the wind, and that's the balance we all must learn. In your career you work hard. You pursue excellence, but you don't beg for recognition. You don't collapse if things fail in love. You give your heart, your time, your vulnerability, but you don't try to possess someone. You don't demand they meet every expectation. In your health you eat well, you move, you rest, but you don't curse your body if illness still finds its way. Letting go doesn't mean apathy, it means maturity, it means rising above the childlike. Demand that life always go your way. I once worked on a creative project, months of effort, endless revision, late nights full of fire and focus, and when I released it to the world, I expected applause. Instead, it was ignored. The temptation was strong to see that as failure, but the Stoics taught me to ask a different question. Did I do my part? Yes. I gave it everything. The result was never mine. That freed me not to retreat, but to keep going. Acceptance doesn't silence ambition, it purifies it. It strips away the ego, the fear, the pride, and leaves behind something cleaner. A commitment to process, not praise, to truth, not triumph. Seneca put it like this: a good character once formed cannot be ruined by circumstance. Meaning, if you act with virtue, courage, honesty, effort, reason, then even failure becomes meaningful, even loss becomes valuable, even pain becomes a teacher. So how do we live this balance in practical terms? First, we act with intention, not impulse. We ask, what is right, what aligns with my values? Second, we release our grip on the outcome. We remind ourselves this result is not mine to own, only the action is. Third, when reality disappoints us, we respond with clarity, not collapse. We say, I did my part, now I will learn and I will continue. Because letting go is not the end of the road, it's the clearing of the path. It's the clearing of the path. It's the moment where the unnecessary weight falls away, and you can walk again lighter, freer, clearer. The Stoic life is not a quiet retreat from the world. It is a full engagement with the world, just without the chains of expectation. It is standing strong in the storm, not because you believe it will pass quickly, but because you have learned to love the strength that awakens in you. So let go, not of effort, not of love, not of life, but of illusions, of demands, of the desperate need to control the uncontrollable. And in that letting go, you will discover something far greater than control. You will discover freedom. Facing unchangeable reality today, Stoic strategies for relationships, work, and loss. The world we live in today is not the Roman Empire. We no longer wear togas, attend forums, or train in the courtyards of ancient philosophy. And yet, the challenges we face, uncertainty, disappointment, loss, remain the same. In fact, modern life may test our composure more than ever. With every ping of a notification, every scroll through social media, every demand from work or home, we are pulled in 100 directions. We're told to hustle harder, to be constantly available, to chase perfection in our careers, our relationships, our bodies, our lives. But what happens when things don't go as planned? What happens when your partner walks away? When your boss fires you? When someone you love falls ill? When your efforts lead to silence instead of success? Here is where Stoicism becomes not just relevant but essential. Let's start with relationships. We often think love means holding on, that if we care deeply enough, we can fix people, change them, or prevent them from hurting us. But the Stoics remind us people are not ours to control. Their choices, emotions, even their love, these are not possessions. Epictetus said, "When you kiss your child, say to yourself, tomorrow he may die." It sounds brutal, but it's not about fear. It's about gratitude. To love someone truly is to accept that they may not be here tomorrow. It is to cherish them in this moment, without trying to own or cage them. In modern terms, it means this: if someone leaves you, that pain is real, but you must not let it destroy your peace. Their decision is theirs. Your response is yours. Love without attachment, care without control. This is the Stoic's path in relationships. Now let's move to work, another realm, full of expectation and pressure. We spend decades building careers. We tie our identity to titles, roles, achievements. We believe that success defines worth. But what if you do everything right and still get passed over for promotion? What if your business fails? What if your dream job becomes a source of daily dread? The Stoic answer: return to what you can control, your effort, your honesty, your discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. Be concerned only with how to use the present moment wisely." It means this: your job may not last, your success may not be recognized, but your integrity, that's yours forever. Work as though no one is watching. Strive with purpose, not for applause. Let your peace come not from what you do, but from how you do it now. Perhaps the hardest of all, loss, whether it's the death of a loved one, the fading of health, or the loss of a dream. Nothing tests our soul like grief. And yet, the Stoics did not run from death. They meditated on it. They embraced it, not with cold detachment, but with fierce clarity. Seneca wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Meaning, we live as if loss is impossible and then crumble when it arrives. But if we faced it daily, if we made peace with the fact that everything is temporary, we would begin to live more fully. When someone dies, don't say this shouldn't have happened. Say, it was always going to happen and I was given the gift of their presence while they were here. When a chapter ends, don't resist. Breathe, grieve, let go. Loss is not the end of meaning. It's the place where meaning becomes real. So how do we live in this modern world full of uncertainty, full of heartbreak, without falling apart? We follow the ancient path with present steps. Each day we train the mind. We remind ourselves of what's ours to hold and what isn't. We respond, not react. We pause, not panic. We accept what we cannot change, not with bitterness but with wisdom, because this is not weakness, it's maturity, it's freedom. Imagine a life where you are no longer shaken by every rejection, where you love without clinging, work without craving, and grieve without breaking. That life is possible not by changing the world, but by changing the way you stand in it. The modern Stoic doesn't hide from life. He walks straight into it, calm, clear, and unshaken, returning to stillness. Final reflections on acceptance and inner peace. There comes a moment, after all the effort, the striving, the wrestling with fate, when you simply sit still. No more questions, no more resistance, only the quiet understanding. This is the way of things. This is where the Stoic journey leads, not to glory, not to control, not to escape, but to stillness. The stillness of a mind no longer at war with the world. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, surrounded by power and pressure each day. He returned to his journal not to boast, not to command, but to remind himself of what mattered. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength in those quiet words. We see it. The Stoic path is not about escaping life, it's about embracing it fully, without illusion. We've spoken of relationships, of work, of loss. We've seen how often we suffer, not because of the events themselves, But because we resist what we cannot change, we say, "Why me? Why now? This shouldn't have happened." But the Stoic knows it had to happen because it did. That simple truth, often painful, always liberating, is the seed of peace. When we stop demanding that reality serve our preferences, we begin to see the world as it truly is, unfolding in its own rhythm, indifferent to our desires, yet full of deep order. And when we align ourselves with that order, not as victims, but as willing participants, we discover a rare kind of power. The power to stay calm in the storm, the power to love without fear, the power to live without needing to control. That is what the Stoics teach, not detachment, but clarity, not coldness, but courage. So what does this look like day to day? It looks like waking up with a clear intention to meet whatever comes with dignity. It looks like breathing through discomfort, not fleeing it. It looks like journaling your thoughts, not to change the world, but to change the world you see the world. It looks like saying yes to the things you didn't choose, because you choose to respond with grace. That is the final power the Stoics give us. The ability to say, with full heart and steady soul, "Let it come. I will remain," because true strength is not found in changing the winds, but in learning how to sail. And when the storms pass, and they always do, you will find yourself still standing, not because the world made it easy, but because you made peace with the world. And so we end where we began, with the ancient words that have echoed through centuries, not as rules, but as reminders. Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. Seneca today. Let yourself be led, not passively, but wisely. Not in weakness, but in quiet strength. Learn to accept what cannot be changed, and in that acceptance find the unshakable peace that no one can take from you. Closing call to action, CTA, in truestoicvoice.com, and inspiring. If this message resonates with you, if you've felt the pull toward inner peace in a chaotic world, then I invite you to walk this path with us. Subscribe to Stoic Penglai, where we share timeless wisdom one steady step at a time. Because peace is not found in noise, it's found in clarity, and the world needs more of it. Let us meet there in stillness.